Olá, eu sou Renato Silveira e está começando mais um Cinematório Café, podcast do site Cinematório. Edição expressa com mais uma entrevista e dessa vez mais um convidado internacional. Conversamos com o quadrinista e cineasta Dave McKean, que esteve no Brasil para lançar sua mais nova graphic novel, Black Dog, Os Sonhos de Paul Nash. Antes de seguirmos para a entrevista, alguns recadinhos. Assine o nosso feed para receber todos os nossos episódios direto no seu aplicativo favorito de podcasts. O link está aí na descrição desse programa. E claro, conheça a nossa campanha de financiamento coletivo e torne-se padrinho ou madrinha do Cinematório para receber a nossa newsletter semanal e fazer parte do nosso cineclube virtual. Acesse cinematório.com.br e clique no banner para saber mais. Dave McKean, reconhecido quadrinista e ilustrador, parceiro de trabalho de Neil Gaiman em HQs como Sandman, Orquídea Negra e Sinal e Ruído, esteve no Brasil para lançar sua mais nova graphic novel, Black Dog, Os Sonhos de Paul Nash. O livro é baseado na vida de Paul Nash, pintor inglês surrealista que combateu na Primeira Guerra Mundial e gira em torno de lembranças do artista e de seus amigos combatentes durante a batalha. Para o lançamento de Black Dog no Brasil, a editora Dark Side Books trouxe o Dave McKean ao país e ele participou de sessões de autógrafo em Belo Horizonte durante o FIC, Festival Internacional de Quadrinhos, e no Rio de Janeiro, onde o autor recebeu o Cinematório para uma conversa sobre esse seu mais novo trabalho, além da relação entre quadrinhos e cinema tão presente em sua carreira. Afinal, McKean também é cineasta, já dirigiu 4 curtas e 3 longas. O primeiro deles, lançado no Brasil em 2005, é Mirror Mask, Máscara da Ilusão, mais um fruto da parceria com Neil Gaiman. Trata-se de uma aventura fantástica ao estilo Alice no País das Maravilhas e Labirinto à Magia do Tempo, com o toque surrealista e onírico que permeia a obra de McKean nos quadrinhos. O longa mais recente dele, Luna, é inédito no país e foi lançado em 2014. Esse é um drama mais intimista sobre amigos de faculdade que se reencontram após anos afastados, trazendo à tona questões não resolvidas entre eles. Ainda assim, a fantasia e sua relação com a realidade se faz presente. Na entrevista exclusiva que você ouve a seguir, Dave McKean fala sobre transformar fantasias e sonhos em imagens. Opina sobre o uso ou mau uso da tecnologia digital no cinema. Diz o que pensa sobre a inundação de adaptações de HQs e filmes de super-heróis nos cinemas e adianta quais são seus próximos trabalhos. Mas antes, claro, ele fala sobre Black Dog, que já está nas livrarias brasileiras. A entrevista foi produzida por mim, Renato Silveira, e Antônio Tinoco, com a colaboração de Leandro Luz, que foi quem conduziu o papo com o Dave McKean no Rio. O áudio, claro, está em inglês, mas na descrição desse episódio e também no nosso site, você encontra a tradução e a transcrição da entrevista na íntegra. Senhoras e senhores, com vocês, Dave McKean.
First of all, congratulations about your new work, Black Dog.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions for you. First of all, Black Dog is a graphic novel about the surrealist English painter Paul Nash,
Yes.
based on his memories of the First World War. Where did your interest for this particular story came from, and how do you feel working with a real-life character in a graphic novel?
Well, it started as a commission. I was asked to think about pitching an idea for a graphic novel about anything to do with the First World War. So not Paul Nash particularly, but anything. But I thought it would be interesting to look at the war through the eyes of one person. And I thought that one person should be a creative person, because it's in their work. They may not talk about their experiences in the war, but it's in the work. You can't escape it. I thought the strongest of the war artists was Paul Nash. Not necessarily the best painter, not necessarily. He wasn't the artist who had the toughest experience in the war, but he seemed to be the person that came back with the most powerful images. And so I knew of his work because of the school of artists he was friends with, the first modern school of British painters. They're not really known outside of England, but they're very important in England. And so, but once I decided that Nash should be the central character, I read everything and looked at everything and really absorbed both the war experience and also his painting.
Did you already had any contact with his work before you imagined that you were going to write a book?
He grew up in a part of England where I grew up, so I recognised the landscape that he painted. After the war, he moved to the place that I live now, so I recognised those landscapes as well. And so there was the start of a connection. And then the more I read about him, he lost his mother when he was a child. I lost my father when I was a child. There was many, many little connections there that I started to get a sense of the man.
Yeah. Also about this connection, I still have to read the entire book, Black Dog, but I'd like you to tell me how much of Paul Nash's own work influenced the visual design for the graphic novel, and whether there is the painter an inspiration for your artistic style in other works also.
Well, there's. I didn't want to just do traced versions of his paintings, and also I didn't want to just do a book full of my images that had no relation to Nash at all. So it's very much a conversation, and so I thought it would be interesting, rather than just do a straight biography, to do a sequence of dreams, because Nash's paintings look like dreams. They're not realistic. They're interpretations of the world. So this is a series of dreams where, and each chapter includes actual facts from Nash's life and from the war and from various things, but they've been interpreted, they've been put together in unusual ways, the way dreams do that. Yeah. And that structure allowed me to interrogate Nash, to talk to Nash more directly. I had some questions that I wanted answering. So I thought that would be an interesting structure. So the final images relate to Nash. Even the cover here, this stylization of the mud is very inspired by Nash. But the whole image is not.
The colours in the book.
The colours and this particular sort of stylization. But the whole image is mine. It's not a Nash painting. You won't see anything like that in a Nash painting. Yeah. So it's very much a dialogue between us.
You mentioned the dreams.
Yeah.
And Luis Buñuel once said that he had a list of 15 recurring dreams that haunted him all his life as faithful traveling companions.
Yes.
Your works also have a very strong sort of dreamy vein. What is your relationship with dreams, and do you have them often? Have you ever put some of them on paper or on the screen?
Yes, I've put some dreams directly into my comics and film. But it's not just dreams. I'm interested in our minds, in the way our minds work, and so I'm interested in everything that surrounds this little moment of fact now. This is reality now, as it's happening now. But 4 hours ago, you had your life, I had my life. They're already fading. We vaguely remember what happened, but they're fading. In 4 hours' time, you'll remember this conversation one way, I'll remember it slightly differently. So already it's losing its grip on reality. And so it becomes our imaginative lives. So dreams are part of that, but also our hopes for the future, our memories of the past, our misinterpretations of things. It's a big ball of unreality or imagination around the little moment of reality.
Right.
So I'm interested in that. Really.
When we talk about dreams, we also remember, obviously, David Lynch's own thoughts about dreams and about how he put these things on his work. It's nice to understand how this actually enter on your own work also.
Yeah, and I think that they're interesting only in what they tell us about ourselves. I'm not really interested in fantastical images and crazy dreams for the sake of it. The interesting thing is looking at why they're there, what they're telling us about the reality, exactly. So long as they're anchored in reality and the psychology of real people, then I'm interested.
A blank page in comics has the potential to get any idea, however big it may be.
Yeah.
But cinema has its own limitations and mainly financial. Jodorowsky, for example, the film director, tried to adapt Dune to the big screen, but it ended up having no resort to.
He nearly got there.
Yeah, and he actually ended up having to resort to comics to tell the story.
Yeah, the Incal is
is
inspired by that.
You are also a filmmaker. So do you feel you have more power as an illustrator than as a director?
Yeah, much.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely. I can make a book like this happen. I can think of something now, and tonight I can start it. I don't have to ask anybody's permission. I don't need a budget. I don't need actors. Don't need a crew. Don't need distribution systems. I can just do it.
Yeah.
I love making film, or I like the process of making films. I don't like the business of films. I don't like the endless lunches and trying to set the money up. I don't like any of that, and I don't like the restrictive distribution afterwards.
Right.
But I like the process. I like shooting, but I love editing, and I love making the music and putting music to pictures.
Yeah.
But it's hugely frustrating. There's a huge amount of frustration for those little golden moments of creativity, whereas making this is all creativity. Maybe one tiny bit of frustration somewhere, but it's mostly creativity.
After or during the making of the frustration? When did it?
I almost made that up because this was completely wonderful. One or two of the chapters I started in one style, and then lost faith and had to throw them away. So that's slightly frustrating. Right. But in a completely creative way, I was free to do that. On a film, there's no way. Well, I couldn't really shoot whole scenes. And then go, I don't like it, I'll throw it away. It's too expensive, you just can't do that. So maybe Woody Allen can do that, I certainly couldn't do that.
In an interview on the Mirror Mask DVD, you say that the digital medium is the next big step in the evolution of cinematic art. For the infinity possibilities it opens.
It's a big step. I mean, it's not the be all and end all, but it's a big evolutionary step.
Yeah, you said that almost 15 years ago. And how have you seen the use of digital technology in cinema today? I'm not interested in digital tools making endless dinosaurs and superheroes. I am interested in digital tools allowing you to see inside a creator's mind. So I think people like Michel Gondry and Spike Jonze and a handful of other directors have really used digital tools in an interesting way. Léo Carrà, French film director who did Holy Mothers and Les Amants de Pont de Neuf.
Leo Carax.
Leo Carax, okay.
I think of. Okay, yes, of course, yes, him. And there have been several others. There was a film recently called The Fall by Tarsem Singh, which I really thought was beautiful. But there are many. David Lynch as well. Not digital so much, but glimpses
of digital in David Lynch.
Yes.
Twin Peaks.
Yeah. So that's an interesting use of digital media. but it hasn't been used as powerfully as I thought it was going to. There's a continual pursuit for realism, and I think that's a very narrow target. There's a whole world of expressionism, impressionism that we could explore, but they're still trying to make realistic people, which is a shame.
Yeah. About this realism, the director Ari Folman has recently released a comic based on the Diary of Anne Frank.
Yeah.
And is preparing a film, the film adaptation as an animated feature.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about adapting any of your graphic novels to the big screen? Maybe just like Folman in animation format?
I wrote 10 drafts of script for Signal to Noise, a book I did with Neil Gaiman. That is an idea. The idea at the centre of the book I still really love. What do we do with our remaining time? And if you suddenly find that you've got very little time, does that change your priorities? And if it does change your priorities, why? Why weren't you doing that to start with? I love that question, but we did not do that question justice with the book. So I have written a film that really expands it. But I got very close to getting it made. I had a great producer, Guillermo del Toro producing at one point. I had Alfred Molina starring in it. A whole bunch of things, but I just couldn't get the money into place. Didn't work.
There's the industry problems. No.
So that's probably that's the one that comes to mind. I would love to have made that film. I'd still love to make that film.
On movie adaptations of comics, they have become an epidemic in Hollywood, and it seems that the studios have become very dependent on them. Rarely original scripts like Del Toro's scripts or are produced, and everything that comes out of there are superhero movies or adaptations of other materials. What is your opinion on these particular films of superheroes and this new epidemic on Hollywood that lasts 10 years?
I don't like any of the superhero films at all. I recognise that some are very well made, and Chris Nolan's films are very well made, and some are complete crap. But on principle, I just don't like any of them. The books that are being made from comics can be good. I mean, I thought American Splendor was a terrific film. And although its relationship to the comic is nebulous, Road to Perdition is a good film, based on a comic. And the new one, The Death of Lenin, is adapted from a comic. It's great. It's really funny script. So they're a source for ideas for films. I think what's disheartening, obviously, is the endless superhero films, but also there's a lot of comics being made that are basically being made as pitch documents. You know, they're storyboards and pitch documents for the film deal. The comic is just a sort of means to an end. I really don't like that. I like comics that are made to be comics, and films that are made to be films.
Speaking of your own work, what do you think of a possible or impossible, maybe, film version of Sandman? We know for years it's been talked about among fans, but never a studio comes close to do it. So,
I mean, I don't really have an opinion on it. I think there are some things. It's a bit like his Dark Materials trilogy, Northern Lights or whatever. They're books that they're about ideas and they're literary conceits. Really, they're not really suited to being films. They're fine. They work fine as comics. Leave it as a comic. You know, if you want to do something like that, think of something original. So personally, I'd be much happier if they just leave it alone.
Right. Just a couple of questions. In an interview, you said something, and we talked about this earlier. You said something that caught my attention, that your admiration for Woody Allen's films is present in Luna, your last feature film.
Yes.
That unfortunately was not released here in Brazil, but Would you say that Luna has a bit of Allen films like Interiors or Husbands and Wives, for example?
Well, I would only hope that it might have something of certainly something like Husbands and Wives, which I think is one of his best films, and Crimes and Misdemeanors is another one that I think is extraordinary. I mean, I love both the seriousness of his films and the humour, the humour at life in the films. He also was my gateway to a lot of other people. So when I was very young, I found his films and then discovered Bergman and Fellini and all those others. So he was my sort of gateway to a bigger understanding of film. So that's why I love those films, really. For a long time, Stardust Memories was my favourite.
Right. It's lovely. One last question. What's next for Dave McKean in comics or in movies?
In comics is easy. I finished a book, a controversial book, with an American writer called Jack Gantos. And that's out from Abrams early next year. And then I'm just about to start a new book for Dark Horse. That's my own book that I've written. That is about political monsters.
Whoa.
And then for a long time I've been working on a sort of strange version of a German film called Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, but my own version of that is called Caligaro. I've got a long way to go with that, but that will be out at some point. And then in films, I've shot a fourth film. It's called Wolf's Child. Wolf's Child, and I'm editing it. Slowly and surely, I'm editing it at the moment.
Thank you so much, Mr. McKean.
Okay.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Tá aí então, Dave McKean, o Cinematório Café, com exclusividade para você. Esperamos que você tenha gostado e, caso não conheça ainda a obra do Dave McKean, que você procure pelas HQs e pelos filmes. Vale muito a pena, pois é um artista extremamente talentoso e de uma sensibilidade notável. Antes de me despedir, quero deixar aqui o meu agradecimento especial ao Leandro Luz, que nos ajudou a realizar a entrevista lá no Rio. E eu também deixo o meu muitíssimo obrigado ao pessoal da Dark Side Books, que nos recebeu muito bem, e a Caroline Borges, da Agência Febre, pela assessoria na realização dessa pauta. Obrigado a você pela audiência e siga o Cinematório nas redes sociais. Estamos no Twitter, Instagram e Facebook, é só procurar a gente lá. Você também nos encontra no Spotify, no iTunes e no YouTube. Acesse cinematório.com.br e conheça a nossa campanha de financiamento coletivo para apoiar o nosso trabalho e receber a nossa newsletter semanal, entre outros benefícios. Para mandar um e-mail, é só escrever para contato@cinematório.com.br. Um grande abraço, até mais, tchau!